Okay, so that's okay. I should be here. Thank you for that presentation, Mike. I couldn't deny it. I wrote it myself. So, and also thank you for inviting me for this presentation. I start to understand that I'm more or less the only operator presenting and speaking about something. I'm the object that's inspected more or less. But I got our philosophy is to be open with whatever problem or issues that there is. I was asked by Hillary that should cover what problems do operators have with the e-SIM. Yeah, there's lots of course and lots of issues and discussions, and as you said also, Mike, it's specific for the CTVs. I started in NOS 6 years ago. I came from a tanker and been working out in the Norwegian sector with shuttle tankers, etc. And I had, of course, issues with the legislations, SOLAS, etc. I thought it was tricky sometimes. But when I came to the CTVs and these gray zones, it was a total gray zone. It was more or less no regulations, especially no international regulations. There is, of course, national from each country. But then I realized this is really something to dig into and to make changes and to find a standard. Would you just like to present NOS a little bit? So I guess not all of you know us. The business for the Northern Offshore Services was started in 2008. We have actually an heritage from 1904, so it's a family-owned company which have been in tankers and for many years before this. It's actually started up. They had a company supplying provisions and crew change between Sweden and Denmark, and they had a new building, and it was passing from Southampton. It was going up to Gothenburg. And then there was called up from the wind park that was under construction off the Netherlands coast. And they were asked, couldn't you come and test and see how it works with that vessel? It looks a nice vessel. And they did it, and they did it for a couple of days, a week. And then they went up to Gothenburg and went on with what they usually are doing. They thought they got pretty well paid. But after a couple of years, we found out that we got the same payment as the other vessel. Hull was trading there, but we did twice as good job with this catamaran. So I would like to believe that we're a part of one of the pioneers in this business, where we actually have grown up and made a standard out of these catamarans. That's the best way to do this. I don't like to say it, but the bump and jumps, step to work, I would prefer to say. Today, NOS have offices in Sweden, that's our main office, and in Denmark, that's where we run the operation from. And we also established a company in the UK since 6 months ago. We also have an energy company, actually selling lubricants for the wind farm industry in Europe. We're exclusively for ExxonMobil. And we still have this, as I mentioned, this crew change and provisions that we're still providing in the coast of Sweden, especially. Today we have 30 CTVs. There's no one from Siemens here, I hope. We will have delivery on Monday. A little bit late. We're a week late with number 30. But they're doing the last tests, etc., and will be delivered on Friday and then go to the UK to starting up. Yeah, that's what's short about our company, and also a little bit of our history. We have been in the most areas around Europe. We've also been in the Irish Sea. This is what we are actually for the moment situated. So we have really learned from the history in all these and been as a pioneer from day one in this business. I will come back to that picture later also. So, as a former speaker talked about, there is for sure a need for regulations and standardization for the CTVs. So this is more or less my conclusion, and also as we started up today, that there is work ongoing in IMO. It will be, but as it looks, what I hear, it's 2023 we will have probably some kind of standardized regulations for the CTVs. Until then, we will live in a world which is from case to case, day to day. And it's important that everyone understand how CTVs are operated and the conditions around that. So that's a part of what I want to inform you about and how we work. We have, since that day one, I got the assignment from the owners. We had 8 vessels, and it was more or less told that we want to build a professional ship management company. I believe we're one of very few in this business globally that actually have a professional ship management. And we knew it well because most of us came from tankers and offshore industry, oil and gas before. So I think we was the right guys to do it. And that's what we have been doing from the beginning. We started up with ISO systems. That was the market was requiring ISO because they thought that was the way to do it. It was not that much knowledge, especially from the energy companies during these days. But we established it and have helped us really much for finding the good quality level of what we do in our day-to-day work, and how to also for the whole company for establishing routines, etc. This wasn't, of course, enough. We also introduced voluntary ISM as one of the first. We got our POC in 2011, and that we still hold, of course, for cargo vessels and for passenger vessels these days. So we have also participated in many groups, especially in Denmark, in the Danish Ship Owners Association, and together with our competitors, we have been discussing what we can develop and improve in general in this business. As mentioned before, also I'm a part of the CMID steering committee, and also we developed in Denmark Crosswind Network, it's called, where we're working together with all the other operators. There is a need for new rules. One example is the 24 seat, as we prefer to call it. On this, our so-called D class, we can carry 24 IPs, is the more correct, or offshore technicians or whatever. I guess you all know what I mean. And just to give you a little timeline, that I got a requirement from the owners because they heard from all the customers that they want 24 seats on board the vessels. And more or less I got instruction from the owner, fix it. I said, how the hell should I do that? Never mind, fix it. So what I was doing, this was in August 2015, and in October 2015 we had the Danish Maritime Days. So then I had the opportunity to activate one of my former colleagues, and which I've been working a lot with. It's Simon Muckler on the DNVGL, and he attended, and we gathered together with Shipyard. And Simon knows most, I think, worth to know about Danish, German, and UK regulations when it comes to CTVs, and this when it comes to the high-speed craft code and the combination. So we had a meeting in 2 hours, I think. And Simon explained for us, this is what you should maybe possible fulfill. And the shipyard took it to them. And just in a month, we had changed the design. We was building these D vessels already. So we changed the design and upgraded it. One of the parts that we did was to move one of the bulkheads in the forward part of the vessel to fulfill the high-speed craft cargo code. So that wasn't actually in that part of the project, wasn't that painful. Then in something like January 16, we had a new design, a new price. I think it cost us 200,000 euros more to make these adjustments to fulfill these requirements. During this process, I had a dialogue with the Danish maritime authorities, and I was pushing them a lot, and I said, here you got a pilot project, you can get it. We will pay for the cost for traveling, etc. Just look at us and see what we do and help us to make a new standard. And they was very positive, as usual, I could say, when working with them for the last 6 years. And they was really listening to us and respected us. And I got more or less a promise from the director, the highest director, that we will fix it. Somehow we will fix it. Just go ahead. And that's what we did. They also promised us that we will hold meetings, we will have making a hazard, but I don't know, maybe political reasons or what it could be. It wasn't done in the regime of DMA. We had to do it ourselves. So while the vessel was under construction, we had a hazard together with the DMVGL up in Oslo at their main office, where we really met. It was a really fight with these. I used to call them these days these soulless people. I respect the as I call it, the blue book, and it's a very good document. It's a lot of experience in it for sure. But when we come to these vessels below 500 gross ton, there is a reason that they are not included. So we had big fights with DME in this office, in the meeting. I actually had, after the half of the meeting, I had to stand up and say, shut up, we are paying for this, do as I say. But it worked. Actually, I very much respect the DMV. They calmed down, and we had start to really, I told them, start challenge us, ask us questions. What is the risks? What should we do to mitigate these risks? And it's actually, after pretty much discussing back and forth for 6-8 weeks, it finalized with the hazard and also mitigations. There's a big matrix in an Excel document where we compare to a high-speed craft code cargo and the notice B, that's the cargo regulations, the Danish cargo regulations. And we sent this over to DMA during the summer. The vessel was due for delivery in July. And we sent it over, and they started asking questions back and forth, and we got class into it also, the local office in Copenhagen. And 22nd of July, we got the vessel delivered, approved for carrying 29 people total on board. So we are pretty proud of what we're doing, actually, that I believe we've done it in a proper way. And we have really looked at the risks and found the mitigations, and how to actually design and handle and operate the vessel like this, of this size. So, and in this also, I believe it was around 1st of July, DMA came out with a draft circular, which was approved, I think it was in August, by the Danish government, that it was okay. So everything was really just on days and weeks, and we got, by a bit flexibility from the DMA, we got it approved and delivered it to the customer in this time also, Siemens, of course. And everyone was very happy with that. That's the timeline of it. And number 3 in this series is being delivered as we speak, as I said. We have upgraded some parts. I will come to the details here forward in the presentation. This is for the hazard. This was, we invited the Danish Ship Owners Association and DMA and DMGGL and us in NOS. And as you see, the objective was to identify hazards applicable for the design and operation of the D-class vessels. The focus on the workshop was on hazard consequence that might be affected by a change in number of PUB. Actually, it's no problem to carry 12, never. You got all the legislations. We can do everything with 12. The problem occurs when you got 13. It's 13 passenger as actually that was evaluated. What will happen? And what we went into this project was that we should have 12 packs and 12 IP and 5 crew. That's not what came out of it. On our trade certificate today on these vessels, it says 20 IP and 4 passengers, which is pretty, I think it's logic that you should have it that way. We have actually a minimum manning document that says that you should have, we are allowed to have 2 crew members if we don't work more than 14 hours a day. So we should actually be able to handle these 24 passengers with this crew. I will come to how we solve that also. Of course, fire explosion, that's the largest risk we have. There is incidents and accidents in this business, but from my point of view, fire explosion is that's the real big problem we get out of that. And of course, with what ends up with the damage stability. Now we're only talking catamarans. Keep that in mind. All hazards that we found out was assessed with medium risk and 1 green and no red ones. We could discuss that, of course, always. So the difference between the packs and IP. I don't think I have to argue so much in this group of people about this. But number one, they are educated. They have a proof that they have a basic safety knowledge. I'm aware of that. Might not be always the truth from day one with this. I usually talk about an electrician from Munich, never seen the sea before. That is an issue. Of course, there is an issue. But nevertheless, there is a proof that they have education. If you compare that to going on sea containers, ferry or something like that, old gentlemen or ladies or children, there's a big difference. There's a big difference. Yes.
So these guys, they didn't advance the answer or anything else like that. They don't have a second safety certification. What do they have?
They have a basic safety.
They do have that. Awesome.
That's what they got, all of them.
If it's talking about technicians, they all have to work offshore, which is sea survival, transfer, basic medical aid, working rescue. So there's a number of things that have and also medical fitness and also do step test up the chest to step, to ensure that when you're flying, you're not running out of breath.
What's just happened is the Singaporean authority have just thrown a bit of a curveball in saying we agree with STCW requirements, so there was a bit of a danger of everybody having to be STCW, but then you ask for everybody else, and there's been a recent round robin and industry bodies have been asked to provide equivalency to STCW 7G, where these body at all those things all been looked at. And are they classed as seafarers? No.
No, they shouldn't be, but it is. Yeah, but it is, as you say, Chris. We had a dialogue with DMA during this, that it should be in this circular on this definition on the offshore technician, the IP. They should be so you benchmark all these different kind of educations. But it's once again we have to, as you see, what we do is pushing, because if no one pushing, nothing happens. So we have to go forward with this and to make something happen. And I believe we have been a part of that together with DMA to actually make a change. So everything is not 100, but we have made a change. That's the important, as from my point of view. And I just, if you compare them to a passenger on a ferry, I mean, they are medical fit. They got the paper on that. It's documented, issued by a doctor. It's not the so-called blue book, but it's nevertheless. They got their own safety equipment. These guys, if it's below 12 degrees in the water, they should even carry their immersion suit. They got the familiarization on board, which they at least should look at. And there's done by video and the deckspan. They are between 20 and 60 years of age, I believe. That would be in the normal. They're sober, I hope. But I mean, that's a big difference compared to when you are on a ferry. Because on a ferry, you could say everyone could be drunk and they could be 98 years old or 5 years old. That's accepted. So what more or less I start to question is how the hell, excuse me, could they allow passenger vessels and question these vessels? I mean, all of the crew and the passengers are educated somehow. Maybe not exactly to the point according to STCW, but that should be on the margin as I see it. They are seated in a limited area, so you've got pretty big control over these guys where they are. There is 2 doors, yeah, they could go out on the deck, but still, they are sober when they go out on the deck. They are medical, they are fit. And it's also, this is a picture of what we are working for the moment. And as we see it, if we got an incident or something happened to any of our vessels in NOS, we have a philosophy that's a part of this, that it should be maximum 6 hours to get help. Actually, it's 5.5 hours, as according to our trade certificate. So what we do when we start up the site, we do an emergency response plan, and we find out all of the resources that are close to this site. You could compare it somehow to operate permits according to high-speed craft code. But this is actually, we can more or less save ourselves because we got so many sites in NOS. So we can more or less send one of our own vessels if we come in some kind of trouble. And there is intense in the wind farm business when it comes to vessels. There's lots of vessels that could help actually. You can trust on it every day, every minute, every hour. But it limits the risk. It takes down the exposure hours. As I said, we got a minimum manning of 2 persons. Yeah, that's true. It's on the limit. I could admit that it could be, but once again, it's the exposure hours. So far, we haven't had. Yes. Oh, I know.
But with 2 people, 2 crew on board, potentially carrying 24 bags. Based on a man overboard situation, are 2 people enough, in your opinion, to recover the first time of the water? Forget the facts. Marine crew job.
But I don't want to forget the packs, because there are no packs.
No,
they're IPs.
Forget the facts as this thing.
Yeah.
Or in the event that the crew member goes over, well, the skipper on board, can he or she recover that person?
I admit that this is the critical point where you end up in all when you're discussing CTVs. It's these 2 persons, and is it enough or not? But I don't want to. I won't answer you black and white. But it's an important issue. And
part of your procedure to do a man on board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we manage it, and you also know that we worked a lot together with Ian and his people during the years, and then I think that's the most drilled thing for the CTVs. It's man overboard. It's more or less too much of it. It's lots of focus have been spent on the man overboard.
So what will we do when we have autonomous vessels?
Pardon?
How will we manage man overboard, the so-called man overboard test when we have unmanned vessels?
That's another issue.
I mean, this is something that used to do all the time in the MCA, because you have to be able to pick a man up from water.
Yep. But these are the interesting questions, actually. That's where we end up with. But just to look on these exposure hours again, and I think that's an important part of it, because as I written there, it's the IPs are not on board when it's the really worst conditions. This is not vessels crossing the North Sea or the Atlantic. They are actually hiding in port when it's real bad weather. Okay, there is a window where you got the problem, but it's so much decreased compared to this passenger vessel again passing the North Sea that has to manage all situation by itself. I know that Tallink, they have taken away their lifeboats on their new super fast ferry. They have no lifeboats. They use it for the passengers instead, that area, because they're trading between Tallinn and Helsinki, and they are not more than 6 hours away from port. I want us to start thinking another way. That's my message to you. It's once again, seems like a lot of Solus people in here. Sorry for that, but I believe that there's possible to think from other angles instead of staying in this old-fashioned thinking from 1953 or whatever it is. I mean, it's important that we really look on this in a new way. And I could honestly say it also, of course, this is a cost issue. If we should have another person on board, and this person, maybe if I take it all the way, it's only do any good in an emergency, that third person. Of course it can do other things. But when you have a two-man and you're operating from the shore back and forth, he won't do much good either than just sitting there waiting for an accident. And okay, I had to mention it. This is our philosophy then, bringing these IPs into our emergency organization. I mean, I guess all of you have been in an airplane, and you have probably, many of you have been a part of that company's, the airplane's emergency organization. Because they dedicate you, if you sit on the emergency exit, they say, oh, they instruct you, you get this leaflet, and this is what you should do. I mean, these are actually not tricky issues to do. And when it comes to abandoning the vessel, I mean, these IPs, they are in a limited area. We got pretty good control of them to get them out to the forward deck and to get them out in the life raft. So what we have done, actually, we got the red seat, and we have one dedicated IP every time that should assist us in any kind of emergency. He got the radio in front of him, and he got the leaflets, what to do. It's very small, I think it's 3 items. He should count people in, and he should communicate together with the mate and the captain. I should also say that we haven't pushed it so far that we have tested to man these vessels so far with 2 crew members, because we work in 24-hour contracts, so we have 5 people on board the vessel. So when it's one thing is the theory, and one thing is what we actually do in reality. And we need time to learn how to operate exactly in details and get procedures for this vessel. We have tested it. We have made a drill 2 times together with the DMA, where they've been on board and citing what's been going on. Of course, it was done in, this wasn't a full-scale drill. This was done in port, of course, to not have any harm or so to people. It takes us 6 minutes from, and that's then everyone is off the vessel and are in the life raft. And once again, the philosophy on an aluminium vessel, on a catamaran, It's not to stay, it's to run. You also have to respect that thinking. It's not this passenger vessel that should manage. I mean, I guess we all learned in the school that it's better to stay on board, stay close to the vessel. But this is not the case on these vessels. Of course, you should try to extinguish this fire. Of course, that's number one. Or do what you can do for a couple of minutes. And this is high-speed craft code philosophy, more or less. Then you abandon, and you have to be able to abandon these 29 persons real quick. Because if you have a fire, aluminium melting, and the vessel is actually disappearing under you. Yeah, it's just regarding the damage stability. We have more or less no issues with damage stability as according to high-speed craft cargo code on these D vessels. We move this bulkhead and then we fulfill the requirements with both the maximum angle and filling and flooded the compartments. These are the existing exemptions on the D-class vessels. What we did in Denmark, we started with the cargo regulations and looked up on the HSE cargo requirements. So this is a mix of exemptions from high-speed craft cargo and Notice B regulations. It's not much, as you see. They've more or less fulfilled. It's details that's not fulfilled. And the Doppler, it seems like it's being solved also by IMO here, that we don't need the Doppler in the future. Yeah.
Sorry, Anders, what's the water sprinkler accommodation query?
That's passenger requirement. So we don't need it. So it's a mix of high-speed craft cargo and cargo roads. Dangerous goods, another interesting issue. We have had lots of discussion together with both Siemens, Dong, and also DMA. We looked on the UK regulations, which are pretty basic. We mainly give full responsibility to the operator and to make risk assessments, etc. So what we ended up together just a couple of weeks ago with DMA is that there would be not necessary to have a dangerous goods certificate on a Danish vessel if you only handle the equipment that the technicians are using during the day. There will be an RO circular issued soon. So I guess there will be limits somehow.
Does that include carrying your own fuel, transferring your own fuel?
No, not in this. Not only. It's only the IP's equipment and what they got to use. That's the only to be considered as cargo. The other is so ships equipment, etc. It's once again we have a couple of vessels with dangerous goods certificates as according to IVNGG code. And it requires 2 BS sets, 5 extra bottles, 2 chemical suits. What would you do if you have an explosion or so? Because this is, we carry gas. That's what we got our dangerous goods certificate for. What would you, and we carry it on the cargo deck. What would you do? Would you go for a chemical suit? That's certainly death. I mean, I would go for the immersion suit. I mean, the important part of this for the captain is to get the manifest. He has to know at least what he got in the vessel. That's not always the story. Today, even I believe. He got to know, and then he got to take the decision, okay, I'll store it there. Then you have gained a lot. So maybe an option is to jettison. Maybe an option is to flooding. But to start to take chemical suits, I mean, we're talking spray bottles, paints, and these gases. So I'm very curious of what will come out from the DMA here in the coming I hope weeks. But then they will have 3 levels. So level 2 is for stores that is used overnight. Then there will be necessary to have a dangerous goods certificate. And that, I believe, is another story, because then it can be both 1 or 2 or 3 nights or so. So then you don't have that control over the goods.
So that's 3 nights at sea.
I don't say it is. I just, this is not a definite. This is our dialogue that we have with DMA. But if you store it overnight, that's what the discussion. If you don't have to have any extra on board, it's only for daily use. Then you start to have certifications, and there will be limits on level 1 also. I'm pretty sure.
I'm sorry, you said you had breathing apparatus as well, BA?
Pardon?
Did you say that you're going to carry 2 sets of BA?
That's if you as we got it today, as according to AMIGD code.
Right.
But there will be probably no requirements.
Right.
Of course, they will check that you've got enough water in the forward part of the vessel, and we will probably have a general line that limits you not allowed to have dangerous cargo after that line. You should have it forward. But there is not. I just wanted to show it that we've got an ongoing dialogue with them, and it's going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think the point here, the inspectors, is that there's a lot of change potentially, with this new regulation.
Yeah, that's my point, and I will come to it in the end also. But my point is that much things happening. So 11 months, and we changed the regulations in Denmark, and I believe it will be an embryo to a standard in the future. So I don't envy you guys. It couldn't be so easy to inspect a CTV, because there is different regulations from country to country, flag state to flag state, and there is new regulations coming out. We have, as I said, 30 vessels, and I believe we have 15 different types of minimum manning documents, because it's always developing and changing, and that's what was my point in the beginning, that we have to be some kind of flexible and cooperate to find the solutions. Just want to mention also the 24-hour operation with CTVs, which also gives some challenges. Now we're talking working 14 days in a vessel of 30 meters size. Hello. It got some challenges, whether we all know, of course. That's always a challenge. You have to be able to perform the maintenance. You have fatigue issues because it's bumping. You've got noise, of course, and once again the crew. There is solutions. Soft bow will make a change. You avoid lots of these bumping. You've got silent periods. I would suggest between 4 and 6 hours you need silent periods during a working day on a CTV, because you need to be able to maintain, stop the engines and do things like this. Of course, the design and HS is always possible to lower, to have a not be on the limit on the significant wave height. To give some hope, there is, as I mentioned, I'm in several groups and we're working pretty much with that during the last years. We've got INCA, which is represented here. We've got G9+. Is that correct, 9? Yeah, I thought it was just G+ these days. Crosswind Network, that's a Danish, and we got Global Wind Organization, Energy Institute, etc., etc. And we also got the Industrial Collaboration Committee, which I was first meeting 2 months ago or so. And that's the really good thing. I'm impressed that we actually start to talk to each other in these different groups, because there are lots of work being done all over Europe these days. And so there is hope for harmonization. So, which regulations do you actually inspect against? I know you got your document and it's more or less yes or no and comments on that. But there have to be lots of uncertainties for you guys out there when you're inspecting. And I hear also that there's lots of manual systems built up underneath to be keeping track of the different regulations in the different countries, and that's I'm used to the oil companies and the OCIMF. There is precise, as according to SOLAS there and there, or TMSA or whatever. It's very precise instructions what you should fill. I usually say it's no problem to run a tanker these days. It's just to fulfill all these VIQ and EPQ and the TMSA. But here it's pretty open field. And it gets remarks, makes you guys issue remarks on everything. And it's also started lots of thinking, and from my own experience, I've seen it for many years in the tanker business. It was pretty complex and pretty time-consuming for us in the operator part to respond to all these remarks. I talked to our marine superintendents a couple of days, and they say that it's not a big problem actually. We handle it. Makes me a little bit worried. Maybe it should be raised the quality on the inspections on CTVs. So you should ask yourself, what is the goal of the inspection? Is it to find many remarks to show that you're a really good inspector and you're causing lots of work for the operator? I calculated a bit 10 years ago when I was ship manager for tankers, and we estimated 500 euros per remark. I just want to put it out here, and it's important on the objectivity and the quality of the remark. That's what I want to tell you guys, and I heard it lots of times here also today. To give us something real to work on, and I mean, the goal should be to increase quality and safety in general. That should be your goal. I know that you shouldn't give advice whatsoever, but if you think once or twice before you issue a remark, and also before you leave the vessel, there should be remarks. You should agree with the captain of the marine superintendent before you leave the vessel, because we hate these remarks that comes up when you start thinking at 10 o'clock, oh shit, I forgot that. That's what we say too. I say shit, because what's that? What's the problem? No, I didn't know anything about that, the captain says. Then we got issues. Then it takes me even more hours. I know there is stress. There's many reasons to maybe leaving a vessel without done the work properly. But once again, we're paying for this. We and the energy companies, we're paying for you to do a proper job. And we want to increase our quality, increase our safety. And you're a part of it, for sure. And I believe I have done a lot of inspections from my year, and also been part of many inspections. I believe I could go on board any vessel and find lots of remarks. That's not so hard actually. But you're also demotivating people when they got 20, 30, 40 remarks, whatever. I've never heard of that in the cities. But it's demotivating people also. I just want to bring it up, because I see you as an important part of motivating our people to develop, to be better, and so we can make all this business more safe. That's us, what we believe. That we work side by side with the flag authorities, Flag Association, and we make them understand our needs, because we are the experts on CTVs. That's our daily work. We do everything we can to set standard in this business and to be a front runner. That's what I had. Did I start something?
Thank you very much, Anders. That brings us to lunchtime. So if I can just say to everybody, go and enjoy some lunch downstairs.